Welcome, everyone. Welcome in. Listen, we're going to have a fun day today. This is the iConis podcast. You're in with your people, your best buddies. Your boy, Rod C. And who?
Barry 3D.
Let's go. Listen, we're going to be having some fun right now. We're going to be talking about, today's episode is on Space Ghosts. Space Ghosts.
That's right.
We've been talking about it. What are we going to do, Barry? Wait a minute. Before we do that, the usual. Man Earth maketh the man.
Man Earth maketh the man indeed. So first and foremost, everyone, thank you for tuning in and watching the show. Like, subscribe, and share. Don't let the show be a secret. There we go. On top of that, you can find this. We got to put on this. Sometimes it's a little bit rusty. So here we go. If you want to, you got to support the books. We support the shows, support the books, all that whole thing, right? So you got to go the Check Swings out in Montreal, and you got to check out Wild Comics out in Kitchener, and tell either Trevor or Wes that you heard about them on the iConis podcast, and we said hi, and they'll hook you up with some great stuff and good raters and where to go and all that. Okay. On top of that, if you too want to have a podcast, you can turn around and use what we use for our audio podcast, and that's Podbean. So you can find us at iconis.podbean.com, and there's everything we got. Now, if you want to see where I'm going to be and shows I got coming up and what I'm doing, I post all that all the time on my website at barry3d.com. If you can't miss it, there you go. And also, if you want to have a podcast of your own,
Okay.
you need some graphic arts. There's only one man you should turn to, and one man alone. And who's that man, Rod?
Jaybird Digital Arts. Arts.
Mr. Jason Reese, Jaybird Digital Arts. You tell him you heard about him on the iConis podcast, and he'll give you a discount on the work. On top of that, two other quick points is one, we are part of the Subculture Podcast Network. Check them out with our show and 5 of the shows. And they got you covered from Star Trek to Star Wars and pop culture and everything in between. Okay. Right. And Rod, where can we find you?
You can find me, as I say, on the World Wide Web. You can find me on Instagram at DJ Rod. Instagram. Instagram, you can find me at Mr. Rod C. You can find me on twitch.tv at DJ Rod C. You can find me on TikTok at DJ Rod C1. That's DJ Rod C1. Quickly, I'll just say before we go, I got something coming up February 28th. If you're going to be in the Toronto area, be in the Brampton area on the west side, Calypso Hut, we're going to be doing one of my brands, one of my parties, What's in My Crate, anything goes, February 28th. Check me out. Stay in touch. Follow me on Instagram at Mr. Rod C for more information. Let's go.
Sweet. Those tickets are on Eventbrite too, right? How much are the tickets?
$10. Listen, I'm not trying to break people's pockets, man. We're just here to have fun. Have a drink, swing a foot. That kind of scenario.
That's right. I like that.
Let's
swing
go.
a foot. And I'll make sure to I'll make sure to swing by because I swing my foot for one song and one song only. That song is
Saturday Night Love.
Saturday Love, man.
Yeah, I just say Saturday night? Jeepers. You see the old brain, boy? Kicking in, boy. Kicking enough gas here.
Saturday Love with Sherelle and Alexander O'Neill. If you hear that song, you'll see me. All right. That is awesome. And of course, our other brother joins us on the show, Larry Reclazato. Please check out the Facebook channel. Forgotten Obscure and Underrated Characters, or Forgotten Obscure Underrated Heroes. There we go. Check out that Facebook page, respect the rules, have a good time, and let's interact. Okay. And we also have a WhatsApp channel. You can find us on WhatsApp, iConis Podcast there, and we have our links to the show. So if you always want to interact, we're there. We're on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast from. Come on, man. Let's do this. So today, tonight, this afternoon, whenever you're listening, watching this show, we are talking about the one and only Space Ghosts. Okay. All right. Took me a while to kind of get to this. We were getting back on track. So we were getting into the whole Hanna-Barbera kind of stuff. And this cartoon, speak to me. Here we go. So Space Ghost made his first appearance in September of 1966, and he was created by William Hanna and Joseph Barbera along with Alex Toth. Now you're going to say, who's Alex Toth and where's this third person come from, Barry? Well, we all know Hanna-Barbera. We know the cartoon. You know the Herculoids. You know Space Ghost. You know Teen Force. You know Birdman, the Galaxy Trio. Come on now, son. You know, Dino Boy and it was The Adventures of Dino Boy. Come on now. All right, everyone. So we're going to talk about Alex Toth and why is Alex Toth so important? Because he turned around and Alex Toth was also one of the creators with Space Ghost, right? So you had Joseph, so you had Hanna-Barbera. So you had those two people along with Alex Toth who worked for them. So Alex also worked on other projects. And I'm just going through my notes. So as I said, Alex Toth, he was born to Hungarian parents. They came over here, got married in Hamilton, Ontario. What? Right here where I reside is where, his parents
Nice.
met, born, got in there. And then from young, he started drawing. His parents recognized that he was very artistic too at the time. His teacher recognized that. And he made his first published appearance or first published work at the age of 15. And he wanted to work in comic strips, but he said that was more of a dying thing. So he went into more comic books at one point. Well, at one point, I mean, in his career. On top of that, he also got the Jack Kirby Award for all the work he's done. He's been in the industry pretty much working for 40 years straight. And he's gone between DC, Marvel, on all of those. So that is really what stuck in my mind. So Alex was behind, of course, before Space Ghost. And this is beautiful because I actually watched this and I didn't realize it was him, even though I thought, I was drawn to it. There's a show called Space Angel, a cartoon called Space Angel. You can actually find it on Tubi. And he was the person behind that. So it's almost kind of like in the future, a Buck Rogers kind of feel, kind of slash Nick Fury, because the guy has an eye patch, and that's Space Angel. And you can find that series on Tubi to watch. And Alex Toth worked on that for doing Space Ghost. And as I said, Space Ghost came out in 1966. And it only came out for like 20 something episodes, right? But I mean, he's done work in comics. He's done work on animation. So in comic books, he's worked on Hot Wheels. He's worked on, Eerie, Creepy, and The Rock. He's worked, on The Witching Hour, Our Army at War. So when we pretty much were talking about certain comic books, wartime comic books, Our Fighting Forces, he's done Batman and detective stories. He's well-rounded in a lot of the stuff in comic books. And that's where it came in. Like at one point he was working in comic books. He went into the army. He came back out of the army, and that's when he kind of got animation. So he went from being, I believe, in New York, and then he went down to LA when he came back from the war, and then kind of got brought in. So he was what you would call an artist. Like you hear the term, he's a comics. So there's certain comedians that other comedians look at to learn from their style, their technique. And it's not saying they're taking their jokes, but just seeing how they carry themselves on stage, how they do their timing, and that's where you learn. So it's like you might be funny for the people, but also as a comedian, you're a technician. And for other comic book creators and animators, he was that technician for them. This is Alex Toth and how important he was in this whole world. And he was even working at one point on the Super Friends cartoon, So it goes on and on. Like his illustration is that good. To show you, for example, for DC, and I just want to call out some things here real quick. So one of them, he turned around and he worked as Green Lantern. So Green Lantern issue number 28, was one of the comics he drew. He did All-Star Comics issues number 38 and 41. Where it brought in like Black Canary. He worked, which first met the Justice Society of America. So he worked on Flash, Dr. Midnight, the Atom, but the World War, the Earth 2 ones, the Justice Society version. All-Star Western. So, he worked with Johnny Thunder. These are the characters that he did. He did even a short where Green Arrow had a dog, and that character got so popular that he got his own kind of spin-off. So Rex the Wonder Dog. These are all the things that Alex Toth worked on to bring to light overall. But we're talking right now, so, we're going to probably talk about the other ones, not probably, we will, because, we can. But for today, we're talking about Space Ghost. So he came and wanted to give this character, the genre. He was influenced by the superhero genre. They wanted to give the character a look. So this is why the character is just all white with a yellow cape and that kind of a black mask, because he wanted to make something that was also easy to animate and give him an iconic look. And that's where Space goes. And we're talking about, the 1966 cartoon came out because of the fact, that's his influence. We're not talking about Coast to Coast. I mean, we might mention it, but this is why I always like Space Ghost. So the fact that the music was awesome for the show. The character, very quick action. It was cool. You know, as I said, he had the white, the yellow cape, the black mask. He had these red bands around his wrist with 3 buttons on each side, and they would give him his invisible power, which would cause him to go invisible. Heat ray, magnetic rays, freeze ray, and they augmented his strength and power and flight as a character. So he was a kind of a Superman character,
Yeah.
and we don't know much about his past. Right? Like, as for his past, it's alluded that he was a cop or a galactic patrolman before becoming Space Ghost. We don't know what transpired to get him into this. It's never addressed in the original series. So let me put a pause here. Rod, what's your feel on Space Ghost?
So with Space Ghost, I know of, seen, but during that time frame, I definitely was more on. You can see the similarities in Scooby-Doo, Super Friends, you know, in the drawing aspect of it. So I didn't really see that much, or I didn't really come across a lot of Space Ghosts in my time. At least for my viewing pleasure,
Right.
I had to catch it up later on in years. So, you know, and reruns, or at least coming up and you've seen little clips on it. That's when I was definitely when it came Coast to Coast. That's when you kind of, oh yeah, he had another show prior. You have to go back and, you know, do your little research and stuff like that. But yeah, he was that type of crusader, superhero type of crusader, you know, who's out for justice and the right of wrong, and he always have his wonderful tag team, and then he always have, you know, Blip was just the comical aspect of it, of like saying, my goodness, like this monkey here causing trouble, boy. Oh gosh, this monkey. That's what we just make you stretch your head. But other than that, yeah, it was an interesting show. I'll say that.
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, like I said, it was just really kind of simplistic storytelling,
Yes.
action. You know, it didn't have to be overly done, mysterious past. And of course, Space Ghost had his the two twins that would help him, right? Jan and Jace. So
Yeah.
they didn't have powers. They had jetpacks, and they were like, I guess, heroes in training. He took care of them equally. And they were brother and sister, like, or twins, right? And then they had
His
Blip the
wards.
Space Monkey.
His wards.
Yeah, exactly. His wards. So we never really got how they all got together and how it came to be,
Yeah.
but obviously we know they're in the future. And now they do share the same timeline as the Herculoids. Even though the Herculoids look, they're primitive, they actually came from another planet, because this is where the robots and the spaceships would come in, and they were defending this planet. They were more like eco defenders, you know, so the planet didn't corrupt it. So at times, in the later one, with the other Space Ghost cartoon, like the Space Stars, and it came out later on, you would see them crisscross and interact more with each other, along with Teen Force and so forth. I know it was alluded that Jan was dating Kid Comet from Teen Force at times, right? So it's
Oh, really?
yeah. He had to get my Space Ghost, had to get that approval. So here's what I like: Space Ghost, Jan and Jace, Blip, and then of course the Phantom Cruiser, the original one, that in yellow with the curved up wings. I thought that was such a sleek design.
What about the cruiser?
Forgot about the cruiser. The Phantom Cruiser. That ship was awesome. You had, the Ghost Planet, which was an asteroid, and he had his Phantom Cruiser on the inside of that with a base. It had all the elements that it would need it to be a success from everything it had to be for a Saturday morning cartoon and even beyond. And then even his rogues gallery. So I'll say this. So you had Zorak, which was one of the villains, and he was more of an insect, from a race, right? Dorkakians, from the planet of Dokar. So Zorak, interesting character, and he was one of the few that kind of came back. Then you had the Lizard Slavers, that were the other ones he fought. Then it was the Black Widow, who later on became the Spider Woman. They changed her name. You had the Creature King, Metalis, Barak, and Moltar. So these were the main ones that he fought over and over again. And what I liked about the original Space Ghost cartoon, even though we didn't know much about his past, we know he was working with the Galactic Patrol, trying to, keep people away from space pirates and everything going on. He did it successfully. And the funny thing is they actually gave that story a full arc. There was an official ending to that original series of Space Ghost, where it was like a five-parter. Because keep in mind the episodes are short, right? So
Right.
in a half an hour episode, you would get two Space Ghosts and one Dino Boy, right? So it would be Space Ghost, then a Dino Boy, and then a Space Ghost to make a half an hour block. So in the last episodes of Space Ghost to wrap up his storyline, he had a whole thing where he had to fight the Council of Doom, and it was a five-part series that continued the other. Now, usually with Space Ghost, it was one episode that stands one and done, no continuing plot, subplot going on. But in the Council of Doom, all these villains that I mentioned come back from the Council of Doom, and they're trying to bring down Space Ghost and put him through the paces. And it was really good if you think for the 60s. Like, it was, I guess, ahead of its time, writing-wise. So I enjoyed the original series, and then when they brought back the series again as the Space Stars and introduced other characters, I know they changed the Phantom Cruiser. I wasn't a fan of the Phantom Cruiser when they did it. I found the art was better in the original one, the animation. But what I did like is they brought in an evil version of Space Ghost from a different dimension, and it was Space Spectre. Yes, yes, yes. All in. And now with Space Ghost, I know he had Space Ghost Coast to Coast, and all right, I'm good with that. I didn't want to see the character as a parody. He's made a ton of appearances in other TV shows, cartoons, and comic books. But what stands out for me is if we go back into the day. So first and foremost, the voice actor for Space Ghost was Gary Owens. And Gary Owens, we used to work on that TV show back in the 60s. So ask your parents about it, called Laugh-In. This is where Goldie Hawn first made her big appearance. It was a sketch comedy show, was uber popular, and Gary Owens was one of the actors on there, and he had that deep baritone commanding voice. I thought that was amazing. Now, of course, we always talk comic books. We say go to your comic book store. So if you want to get some Space Ghost stuff, and we're not over yet, but just kind of giving you this point, Space Ghost showed up in Gold Key. So Gold Key was another comic book company that existed for a long time and did a lot of TV properties. And Space Ghost showed up in one of the issues in 1967. And then you had Hanna-Barbera Super TV Heroes by Gold Key, which was 1968. And then, of course, Golden Comics, once again, Golden Comics Digest, which is by Gold Key in 1969. And then here's the change. Marvel comes in, and I believe Marvel acquired them, Gold Key. So this is why Marvel was able to get and make their own show comic called TV Stars. And it came out in 1978, and it had Space Ghost. I believe it had Samson and some other characters that were on there. And it was, I remember buying that issue myself. And then, of course, Space Ghost went over from Marvel to Comico, that company that was doing Robotech at the time, in 1987. And they had like Johnny Quest and other ones. Comico, that was another kind of independent one that was getting all the license. And then it went to Archie Comics in 1997. And then once again, it's still in 1997, it went to DC Comics. So DC had had that property for a while for Space Ghost, being it solo runs and crisscross. One of my favorite ones was Future Quest, where DC Comics back in 2016 did a 12-issue series, and they took all the Hanna-Barbera characters and gave them a kind of a Crisis on Infinite Earth storyline where they all interacted. So Space Ghost, Frankenstein Jr., Speed Buggy, Johnny Quest.
Yep.
The list goes on. I got that whole run just for the nostalgia of it. And it had some spin-offs. So, of course, and Space Ghost is still going currently. So right now, the series is going currently from Dynamite Comics. Dynamite Comics is taking all those things. Space Ghost, they got $1 Million Man, Buck Rogers, John Carter, Deja Torres. The list goes on. And they're putting out currently some new stuff along with Gatchaman. So there we go. Battle of the Planets, right? So that's just to give you some reading material list. Go definitely check out, as I said, Future Quest. Check it out. Go to your comic book store and get that up. But that's where Space Ghost is at. Now, the show. Rod, did you watch any of the original cartoons back in the day or more recently?
Back in the day, like I said, back in the day, I didn't see it at the time, but more later on as more of you know what? I know of Space Ghost, and I went back and I checked it out. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, he had that type of literature type of imagery that reminded me of the Super Friends and Thundar the Barbarian. And again, so I just knew it was in that particular realm. So I was like saying, I'm good with this. I'm good. So yeah, it was always one of the things, like you said, it was always short, like, well, 10 minutes, 8 minutes type of segments, whatever the case to be, is one of those early kind of like a Tom and Jerry kind of thing. You're in and out. You stand alone by itself. It's just simple as stuff like that. But it was always entertaining to say, okay, what miraculous stuff is going to happen right now? How is Space Ghost going to come out of this? Oh my goodness, Space Ghost, look out for that. Triumphantly, he saves the day. You know, it's again, as simple as it was always just fun and straightforward, giving you the normal three arc type of dynamic of, hey, there's a problem. Oh my goodness, I got stopped in the problem. At the end of the day, I figured out the problem. I am now victorious. The galaxy is saved by who? Space Ghost. And that, hang up the cape, go back to sleep, wake up next morning. We got problems. All right, let's go. Come on, young wards, let's go. And bring the monkey too.
It's so true. It is so true. But once again, sometimes, simple is best, man. Now, what I always was saying is Space Ghost was missing an origin. And I know they gave Space Ghost a miniseries. I believe that's the one in 2006 by DC Comics. It was like 5 issues, So the art was cool, but and as much as I enjoyed, I'll say this: I found it a little bit too dark for Space Ghost, right? Because it gave his origin story of how he he was working with the police force. The team he was on were corrupt. They betrayed him, so he fights back. They end up killing him, or so they thought. But they killed his pregnant wife. They leave him for dead, and he survives, and he's grim, and he's bitter. And then he runs across this other alien on this planet, and this alien's like, well, I can help you, but you're too angry for me to help you. I'm an engineer. I design stuff. I'm an inventor. I design stuff. And he designs the mega bands, and he gets the white costume, and so it gives him his powers, and he goes out for revenge, and he ends up saving Jen and Jace from an invading force of these aliens, insect aliens that are led by not Barrick. His main one there, and I know I just called it out before.
Zorak.
Mm-hmm. Right? So that's where it comes across. But I found it too dark. It was almost like it gave me the feel of that series of Batman. Batman is a dark, pretty character.
Yeah.
And that's how Space Ghost came across at first. And I'm like, okay, it's cool getting an origin of Space Ghost, but it's too dark for Space Ghost. Like, don't tell me that he lost his wife and unborn child, and he shot and left for dead. It was like very very Batman, very RoboCop to a certain degree, graphic. And I thought that was too dark. I think they could have made it. I'm not saying it's like, oh, hunky dory, ha ha ha, but it didn't have to be dark like that. So that's why I felt it kind of missed the mark. That the art, the covers were amazing. The art was great, but it was too, me personally, right? I mean, you guys go check it out if you can, read it, and you'll see. Maybe you'll understand what I'm talking about. So that's how they showed his origin. I would like them to give me an update. I haven't read any of the Dynamite comics. I read issue number 1. I have issue number 1, but I never continued it to see if they covered his backstory or not. So I would like to see his backstory not so dark, right? He's a serious character, not a dark character. Big difference.
Right.
And I want to see that play out. But yeah, that's where I'm at. So what about you, Rod? How would you like to see this play out, man?
So, I mean, I would like it to be, again, animated, because, at least keeping the genre of that realm. I would like it to be animated, but I would like the animation to be drawn out, with more realistic texture. So it's now mimicking an actual individual. So whoever's I want as the voice actor, I want that person to be kind of like drawn like in the Samuel L. Jackson, Avengers second, Ultimate Universe type of environment. So I want to give it a little, give it a little bit more texture, the realism, tangibility on that. So that's how I would like it to be. And again, you're right. You said the backstory, make it a little bit, lighten up a bit. If I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, yourself or anybody down in the chat, I mean in the section below, Blue Falcon, because when you're talking about that, you start making me think about, cause we talked about Blue Falcon, and
Yes.
again how the comics had changed his narrative, how his origin was slightly different, that he was killed, and with the dog,
Yeah.
the Wonder Dog, Dynamite was his dog and everything along that line. But I want to have some tangible thing that kind of like saying what made him be the super cop, like what drove him to say he's doing this by himself. Because initially, if you look at it, yes, we see that he has his two sidekicks, his two apprentices, his two wards. But was that initially how it started? Did he start on his own? Did he, did the children were in a situation where he saved them and they really gravitated to him? And at that point, his heart could have been very hard, very, dark in that sense.
Yes.
And these children kind of lightened him and made him think like, okay,
True.
you know what, there's more to life. I can't be this lone soldier all the time out into the darkness of space. Because you said it was dark. And I thought, well, it probably started off because something happened. Maybe he was an astronaut or he's a space cop in a sense, but it's all space. So it can't be just a cop and think he's on a planet by himself. Let's just give him some territory like the Green Lanterns.
Yes.
And something happened, and his ship got knocked out, and he's like in the vast of space, in the darkness, and it just tightened his heart to be, oh, I'm about to die. All this vastness of darkness, all I see sprinkles of stars from afar because space is dark. Look upside in the night, you'll see it's dark. So that might have just triggered his mind, and he's just like focused to be just that type of individual. But come across these children, he saved them, and that might have just lightened him up and just, you know what? I can't take this thing too seriously. I need these children to help me in my humanity, in my quest to be a better individual. You can start pulling little elements of Bruce Wayne, Dark Knight, Batman off of that, because you see sometimes they make the parody that you have your Bat family starting off with with Robin and everything like that. You're trying to turn him into him. No. I'm trying to save him from turning into me.
Yeah.
Type of scenario.
Yeah.
So by me doing that to him, if you look at it on the flip side with Bruce, he's doing that not only to save Dick Grayson, but also to save himself. Because if he can pour into this boy, he can reflect and see the good that boy is getting. I'm like, okay, I must be doing something right. Keep doing what you're doing, Bruce. Because, Batman is the primary image and Bruce is the secondary. So Batman's talking to Bruce. Bruce, keep doing what you're doing, Bruce. You're going to save me one day.
Very true. Very true. Okay. I like that. Okay.
So, yeah. So on that, let me jump. I'll just go because you're going to come back to me like who it is. So I would like I said, I want some realism. I wanted Sam Worthington.
Oh.
I wanted Sam Worthington. Because initially I was thinking, I'll have him as, the physique and, he's done enough acting chops, some gritty stuff that he can take that no problem. Then I realized, no, this is Space Ghost. We got to do this as, let me get a merge of both. Let me get the animated cartoon. Let me get the real life. That's why I said, let me at least have the graphic aspect of it that is drawn, that is very, 3D-ish type of texture that you can see. I see Sam Worthington right there. He's putting on the mask. I see Sam Worthington. I see whoever it is. So whoever actor you have. So when you're now doing the other actors or whatever the case may be, you can make the decision that you can have all the other actors can be the voice actors. But that's up to you or, the studio, whatever the case may be. But if this is going to be your prime person, have your prime person a recognizable face that people will be like, yeah, put down the mask. I see here. I still see Sam. Yeah, that's what I want you to figure.
Okay, I like that.
He's done the stuff. He's done the acting. He's done the vigilante type of aspect from Clash of the Titans. He done the Terminator. He's supposed to be the good hero, but he turns out that he's a Terminator himself, a futuristic tech. He's done the Avatar, so again, the texture aspect of it. So that's where you can just say, okay, well, let's just, instead of making him a 10-foot, blue,
Alien, yeah,
Avatar,
right, yeah,
alien
Avatar, yeah,
devil, as it with his tail, kind of, whatever the case be. You just say, oh, we can do that. Because in reality, if you think about it, he did have texture. You can see Sam in that face. You can see Sigourney Weaver in in the face of the
yeah,
alien of Avatar.
yeah.
So it's not a far fetch that you can't do that. So I'll just that's how I want to put it and
It's
go from
nice.
there.
I like that. I like that. See, okay, I like that. Not knocking it. So, and here's my take. So I like everything that's done. I want the original Phantom Cruiser, not the updated one. Right? I
Right,
want
and
the
then there you
yellow.
go.
That's first and foremost. Two, I need an origin story before Jen and Jace and him getting Jen and Jace.
Yep.
That's not gonna be overly dark. I know Dynamite's doing it, or have done it. Uh, now we never see in the original cartoon Space Ghost without his mask, right?
And
But once again, where do you get all those wonderful toys from? As you know, the Joker would say in Batman '89. So they
right.
covered that in the miniseries that someone's there helping him build it. So just like how you
Mm-hmm.
have Batman has someone that helps him build, there's a hunchback guy that lives in a Batcave who knows Bruce Wayne is Batman and helps him get these toys. I know they retconned it now. It's Lucius Fox that's doing it. Okay, great. But Lucius Fox is aware of that guy because the guy is a genius. That's who's making all the Batmobiles, right?
Think of Whistler from Blade.
Exactly. So I want to see someone that gets, finds Space Ghost, free Space Ghost, gets him the power, the bands, the Phantom Cruiser, the Ghost Planet with the tower inside the Ghost Planet. I
Yep.
want someone to say, okay, this is who built it, helps to maintain it, and kind of get that storyline and enrich the story more with that. Where's Earth in this? Because you really don't see Space Ghost on Earth. He hears from Earth, but he never goes to and interacts with Earth. So I like to see Earth in that time. And of course, with that, I'll say that I definitely want a cartoon. And I do
Mm.
want to see like a proper crossover with the Herculoids, even before they come to Herculoids. So it'd be cool to
Mm.
see Xandor from the Herculoids on Earth with his wife before they even leave to go to the planet and make the Herculoids, right? Because we know
Right.
I think he was a scientist or a biologist, something like that. So I want to see him.
Mm.
I want to see them all on Earth before they take on certain roles.
Got it.
So I want to still see the animation as almost as close to the original animation as possible. Today's standards. I love the look of Space Ghost. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Color scheme and everything. See how he got that name. And I want a voice actor that's very similar in my mind, or an ear, I should say,
Yeah.
that can pull it off. So the voice actor that I would love to see do this series, and I like to see the series come back at least three seasons, right? Before Jan and Jace, with Jan and Jace, after Jan and Jace, maybe a fourth season,
Mm.
and then what happens after? Like, because at one point Jan and Jace are like, young and they become teenagers. They grow up. What's the future plan for Jan and Jace? They're not going to hang around Space
Right.
Ghost all the time. Is one of them going to take on a mantle
The
of Space
mantle.
Ghost?
Yep.
The mantle or a mantle very similar, right?
Yep.
Are we gonna have like how we have Superman and Superboy and Supergirl? Are we gonna have like a Space Ghost, and I want to see the Ghost Spectre, his evil version, come through, and more of a robust storyline with that whole aspect, right? Like how we have the mirror universe with Star Trek. I want to
Yeah.
see how that plays out, or let it be his Ultraman. So the voice actor, I need someone that's going to be close to the original. There's someone that has a commanding voice, deep voice that can convey emotion, no problem. And person I believe is Roger Craig Smith. Now you're going to go, cool. So Roger Craig Smith, he's an American actor, but he's known for a lot of his voice work. So one of his voice work was in the video game Resident Evil. He was the voice of Chris Redfield. He also played Ezio in the Assassin's Creed series, right? And currently, where I hear him the most is on Avengers Assemble. He plays Captain America,
Okay.
right? So if you watch the cartoon Avengers Assemble, he's Captain America. Okay, I'm good with that. And if you hear how he talks with the voice actor that's Tony Stark, and their repertoire and how they're teasing him being the old man and not using technology, and at one point he schools him, he does it so well that I think this is the guy for me, Roger Craig Smith, to play Space Ghost, and then let's get some layers with that. Seeing that he's got the props of being someone that's in a horror series dealing with zombies, be it he's dealing with being an assassin at one point in Italy, and also the fact that, he's also done Sonic, but I mean, other video games. And of course, Avengers Assemble, he was leading a team as Captain America. He's already been made the iconic person. Now, I know people look and say Iron Man, but really, Cap is the field leader, and that's what Space Ghost is. He's a man of action.
Right. Yeah.
So there we go. That's who I'm saying there.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. I like that.
There we go.
You can build off of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? And this can be done as a regular cartoon. Now, here's my fear. As a regular cartoon, they always want to say, okay, well, what can it do? Because they want to sell stuff. We never really got, I mean, I have a Space Ghost figure, but I think it'd be cool to maybe make him a little bit smaller. Give me the Phantom Cruiser. Give me Space Ghost and some of his other compatriots that he do. Give me a place that has a ghost planet with a jail cell in it, right? I think it's an unexplored toy line.
100%.
And some more
100%.
crossovers, right? Like when I know there's a picture that makes me laugh all the time I see it. So it's a picture of Space Ghost. So you have the Phantom Cruiser in invisible mode. So you know how they draw just a white line, and then you got Wonder Woman's invisible plane, and they're both on a planet. They had a head-on collision, and they're both on the planet. And you have Space Ghost and Wonder Woman saying, "Oh, you didn't see me. You didn't see me." And you got Jan and Jace with Blip, and then on Wonder Woman's side, you got the Wonder Twins with their monkey. I can't remember his right name right now, but
Yes, I know. Oh my gosh.
Right. And if they're all in the picture, and I'm like, that makes sense.
It does.
Because that would be a crossover, and you know what? So give me that. And if they do it as a cartoon movie, and if it's still able to pull off by DC, or they're able to get that, then give me that as a crossover movie for half a second. When they do like a 10-second backup kind of thing story. It's like, how Batman Brave and the Bold was kind of had some jokes to it, but it's also serious at the same time. Give me that crossover where it's Space Ghost with his two wards and the monkey, along with Wonder Woman, right? The Wonder Twins.
And Gleek.
And Gleek, thank you. And Gleek, right? Come on now. Come on.
Goodness.
I don't take credit for it. I just said I came across it and I thought it was funny. There we go. All right, man. Any last words on Space Ghost?
No, I mean, definitely, you know how I do, man. It's a good. You're right. If you want to reverse engineer in the sense of, selling product IP, yeah, that hasn't been utilized as much as it could have. It's definitely a good entry to remind the new generation about Hanna-Barbera, all those IPs. You can go with that route and just say, this is the quote unquote, Batman version, and just see all the sparks. What do you mean? He has, similarities, or, his, there's similarities. Come on in. Let me tell you about Ghost. Let me tell you about Space Ghost. Come on in. And to me, that'd be a good entry aspect of it. So yeah, I definitely say if they can hash it in, dig a little deeper, and, just give go into his backstory and be able to just, give some modern day, situation issues to flesh out. Like it won't be hard to see that it's a detective type of environment, a cop show, animated style.
Exactly.
It's practically writing for itself.
That's it. And he's the glue, right? Like he's the first one. Like everyone has to have the first in the universe. So let him be the first, and then let him interact with Team Force. Let him interact with the Herculoids, right? Like 100%. Let those Birdman, Galaxy Trio, let that and work it up to an event where they, just like Future Quest, where they all have to interact and work together along with Johnny Quest. Let some time travel happen and let them try to stop a big event, and then they go about their way. And then let's graduate the heroes. Let's graduate Jan and Jace into what they could be. Don't turn one into a villain. Don't do like, one gets injured and is angry and he wants to get revenge on Space Ghost because Space Ghost didn't save him. I don't want that storyline. I want to see and the legacy carry on. Just say, well, Space Ghost is getting up there in age and someone has to carry on the mantle. And very possible in this day and age, we'll make Jan the new Space Ghost.
Right.
And maybe make Jace, her brother, the engineer who makes all the equipment and keeps everything up and going.
100%.
I'm good with
100%.
that.
I'm good with that too. And you know what? I'm just making it a joke. I'm just saying stuff about meeting the others and being the glue. I started to laugh in my head. Like, again, you know, if he's a cop, he's a space cop, he's a police officer. You know, most times when they're having, okay, if you have any, if you have any other question, you remember anything, please give me a call. He flashed out a card, and then on the back of it, you see, Space Ghost, the
logo,
coast to coast. So if you had, just letting you know, I might invite you, to come for more information, you know, and then you can segue it to Space Ghost, coast to coast. How did you get here? He left me a card.
Wow. Yeah, they do have to do a color on it, right? Like, something funny like that, right?
Just something, just a parody, one, two shots on that, just to
yeah,
make,
exactly.
To bring up that in there. That'd be hilarious. But anyways.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that would be it.
I like that. Well, on that note, thank you everyone for tuning in. Like, subscribe. Don't let the show be a secret. Once again, this is Barry 3D, and on my side, as always, is
DJ Rod C. Let's go.
Wow. This whole world was started with a pencil, a piece of paper, and lots of imagination. Keep on dreaming. Stars goes. All right. Theme song's catchy. You can't admit that. All right. We out. Try AA batteries.
Oh, dang.